Well, look, let's go to Peter, who was brought up on the land. Peter, thank you again for your time. Just following that up, the Prime Minister said, and it pains to say, we won't sign our country up to policies that undermine the prosperity of our regions or make life harder for everyday Australians. Yet the farmers are writing to me to say this is already happening. I mean, the Prime Minister said our plan for net zero supports farmers to take advantage of new markets, including carbon markets. Peter, do people in Canberra, in their ivory towers, think that a farmer's going to rush out and either sell his farm to be a carbon sink or carve off a third of it to plant trees instead of growing food and beef and lambs to put on our tables?
Well, I think some of the Liberals in the leafy urban seats might hope that the farmers do that, but those who understand that we are rich because of our food and fibre exports and the minerals we dig out of our ground would be smart enough to realise this is just a path to nowhere. I mean, the point that your discussion with the previous guest was getting to was, of course, if these big multinationals buy up our farms, they take not only that food and fibre out of production, out of our export earnings, out of the food we put on our table in Australia, but more importantly, they denude our country, towns and regional communities. There's not kids from the workers that go to school, not families on these places anymore. The feral animals run riot. They're owned by a multinational based out of, maybe a Canadian super fund or whatever. And we lose the connection of Australians with Australian land. And I think those who have read the detail of these carbon documents that I have for 15 years know that we are on a hiding to nothing in terms of the life that we have now, both the standard of living and the culture in this country. If we sign up to what I now call FLOP 26, we're the only bunnies over there now signing up to net zero by 2050. The big emitters are not. They're not even there. And those that are there, like India, they're talking 2070 and beyond. But we will radically change our way of life, Alan. If as hard as we think the energy changes have been, that's the low-hanging fruit. It's all these other things to come.
Yes, I know. See, David Littleproud is the Deputy Leader of the National Party. He's at last identified the problem that's been going on for 10 years and admitting that carbon abatement projects were having a negative impact in his electorate, which is over 3 times, I might add, the size of Victoria, from way up in Buckhaldon and Winton and Longreach down to Goondiwindi and Stanthorpe and Warwick. It's massive. Fabulous agricultural land, but the Prime Minister says farmers can take advantage of new markets, including carbon markets. So a third of our best productive land could, he thinks, stop providing food for the table and become a carbon sink because carbon farming is part of the government's plan to reach net zero carbon emissions. How does the National Party support this stuff?
Most of them don't understand it, Alan. I mean, this is the only people who've cottoned on to the money-making opportunity of carbon trading schemes are the bankers and the billionaires. Yes. And the poor old farmer will be the patsy at the end of it all. Yeah. And, we remember in the drought only a couple of years ago, we had farmers in Queensland who weren't able to feed their starving cattle on the mulga. Because the mulga was locked up for carbon sinks. Precisely.
This plan is going to increase these offsets by up to 278% by 2050. And the National Party put their hand up and say, hey?
Well, I read a report to say that pastures actually abate more carbon dioxide than mulga and other native forests. Now, we're locking up the forests, we're stopping farmers clearing land and using pasture, but if pasture has more abatement, that's the argument for clearing more country than not. The environmentalists will be up in arms about that. I was saying before, in the EU about 10 years ago, they had all of these shysters involved in these carbon offset schemes, criminals out of Eastern Europe, all manner of dodgy players on the sort of a dark web black market, and they had significant integrity issues. But this is the way of the world, and Australian companies will spend millions and millions of dollars and governments on these offset schemes.
Absolutely, and ruining the agricultural industry. And I don't know anyone in camp. See, this lady knows more about this than all these people put together. How come they don't know? I'll tell you how they don't know. They don't read and they don't listen. Great to talk to you, Peter. All the best.